please read the consent agenda titles.
Establish February 2nd, 2016 as the public hearing date for the consideration of the transfer of ownership and location of retail liquor license number 21 from TURT, a Wyoming LLC, doing business as Sandbar Lounge, located at 100 North Ash Street, to Modern Electric Company, located at 246 West 1st Street. Established February 2nd, 2016 as the public hearing date for the approval of a municipal growth management agreement between the City of Casper and the Town of Bar None regarding future growth boundaries.
The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish the public hearing dates just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Cathy, seconded by Councilman Pacheco. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
The council will now hold previously scheduled public hearings for the purpose of obtaining public input. Public hearings are held for items such as annexations, liquor licenses, transactions, passage of the budget, and zone changes. The city attorney will present applicable exhibits for the issue, and the city manager will give council a report. Members of the audience will then be asked to speak either in favor or against the issue, and then the council will discuss the issue and act upon if necessary. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the vacation, replat, and rezoning to create Hembry Addition Number 2. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
I do, Your Honor. I have two exhibits for this item. Exhibit number 1, that being correspondence from Liz Becker to V.H. McDonald. That document dated January 11th, 2016. And exhibit number 2, the affidavit of publication as published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated December 30th, 2015.
Thank you. City Manager report.
Your Honor, the owner of the property located at 2621 South Robertson Road, also known as the Hembray Addition, has applied to replat the property and rezone the property. The replat will be called the Hembray Addition Number 2 if approved, and the rezoning is from urban agriculture to R2, one-unit residential. The Hembray Addition is currently platted as one lot of approximately 1.9 acres, and it's located on, as we've mentioned, the address of South Robertson Road, just adjacent to the river, the Platte River. The proposal, the replat proposal is to split the parcel into 4 lots, ranging from size from 4,805 square feet to 42,084 square feet, with the minimum lot size in ag-urban being zoning 1 acre. This will change in R2. The minimum size zoning is 4,000 feet, so it'll be compliant to the zoning for R2. This item was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission on December 10th, and no public comment, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the replat and rezoning.
So P&Z recommended approval.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of Hembry Addition Number 2 to please approach the lectern. All who want to speak in favor of Hembry Addition Number 2. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Your name and address.
I'm Brian Wagner, 720 Goodstein Drive, Casper. I'm speaking for Mo and Don Hembry. They're out of town, in favor of the replat and rezone.
Okay.
They're the owners of the property.
Right. And What's their gauge on this? Long time coming, just a bureaucratic change of,
Yeah, to go to residential instead of urban ag.
right,
That's the main thing, and then split the lots and maybe sell a couple lots for building new houses.
okay. That's kind of a tight spot on the river. Any,
I mean,
well, it just,
I think the lots were split down, the two lots that they were thinking about selling for building were, one was 10,000 square feet and the other one was just under 10,
okay.
so.
All right. Council, any questions or comments for Brian Wagner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor of Hembry Edition number 2? Okay. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to Hembry Edition number 2 to please approach the lectern.
Mr. Mayor, Paul Penn, 2781 Cherokee Lane. Not really so much in opposition of changing it, doing the zone change. My concern on this is, especially when you look at and I don't have the map in front of me, but the northernmost lot that they were looking at replatting there was very tight. I mean, that property, my gosh, it can't be much more than 30 or 50 feet from the road to where it drops off into the river there. I mean, I don't see how you could realistically plan on putting a building on that small lot. I mean, I guess like I say, my concern is the size on that. Maybe changing that into a 3-lot plat where you had a little more room on that north end or something to that effect. I'm really concerned, especially about that northernmost lot there. It's just, I don't know what you would do with it. I mean, there's just, if you've been by there, there's just not much room there. So that's really my only opposition there is, maybe if you combined the top two and made one lot there or something, to where you would have some room to do something. I don't know what the setbacks, I don't remember what the setbacks are to try to put a building on there, a residential building on there. But that just doesn't seem like that would be a very feasible thing to do on that northernmost lot. So that's really like I say, I'm nothing against the zoning change. I'm just more concerned about the size of that northern lot.
Well, philosophically, wouldn't that just be something that the owner couldn't sell?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe they could try to rezone it again and put it to some kind of business and put I don't know, a shaved ice shanty on there or something, but that's about all you're going to get on there from that area. There's just, I just don't see why you would want to replat something with that you couldn't do anything with. I mean, it just seems to be if you're going to split it in 4, I would think you would have taken the northern two and put them together and then kind of split about where the second and third split now, just kind of move that line up and make another smaller lot in the middle there where you had a deeper lot where you could do something with instead of that narrow one. But the way it's drawn, I just, I drive by that place every day, and quite frankly, I don't see what you would, I think you're going to turn this into basically I don't know, just a blank space that'll never be useful for anything. So,
Well, I would like to know that there is a trend in very, very small houses, and that riverfront property,
right.
you're only going to get so much. So I'm not so sure that that lot is hopeless in its future.
Well, no, never mind. I won't say it.
Okay. Council, do we have any questions for Paul Pat?
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bergeron?
Mr. Mayor, I think you should call where there's anyone else to speak in opposition.
Okay. I hear that you're here to speak in opposition to Hembry Edition Number 2.
Yes, I have some questions concerning this.
Okay.
I'm really not against a private owner's land change, zone change. What I am concerned about is how it will affect county property that surrounds it, and just protecting that right, basically, of the surrounding county properties. First of all, could I ask again when the public notice was in the Casper Star Tribune?
Was it the 18th? No. Right.
It was published December 28, 2015, Your Honor.
Thank you. Those December 28th, last year.
Okay, so it was after the planning and zoning meeting, which was on the 10th, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that standard, that the publication comes after the planning and zoning meeting?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay. Then my second question was, the planning and zoning meeting kind of stumped me in the fact that it was on December 10th, which is a Thursday. Generally, planning and zoning meetings are the third Tuesday of the month. So I thought that was kind of irregular. That's a bit concerning to me.
Okay, wait a sec. VH, can you address that?
Your Honor, the Planning and Zoning Commission moved their meetings to Thursdays to not conflict with the council work sessions, and they did that 2 months ago.
Your Honor, you are correct, Mr. City Manager. But in the month of December, we have traditionally, for the past 10-plus years, had the meeting on the second Thursday in the month of December because of how the holidays fall. And that is published as the one exception to our Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, which are typically the fourth Tuesday, which again works with your work sessions. And so there's always a little overlap there, but it is always that second Thursday in the month of December.
But in future, those planning and zoning meetings will be on Thursdays.
Thursdays, Mr. McDonald just said,
Okay,
beginning in 2016.
all right.
That's what I was going to say, is that basically P&Z will be meeting day after tomorrow,
Okay, thank you.
and that is their new meeting date, the third Thursday.
Thursday, okay, that's good to know. The next question that I have is, I watched that planning and zoning meeting of December 10th on video. There was a question asked, and the camera was only on the head of the planning zoning. It didn't span in any way to show who was talking. But one of the members asked a question of, they could see south side access to the property that would affect the rezoning. But there was a comment by the person that answered the question of where is their access on the north. And that is, of course, if you're going to rezone it, that's a very good question. Access out of the property. The answer stumped me, and I would encourage all of you to go and watch the video. It says that they're working on north side access, but he did not wish to speak to that at that time. I just feel that that is a pertinent question that should be answered.
Well, I'm not sure I would like to speculate on that question on behalf of planning and zoning. Ms. Becker, do you have any idea what these concerns are? And
Your Honor, on the plat that was presented to the Planning Commission, we did, in fact, show access on the lots. Again, the plans for lot number 2, which is the one farthest to the lot, has not been determined at this point. At this point, it has been left more as a park use, and then the other lots did have defined access for the residential uses.
okay.
Okay, then I have another question. I'm so sorry, but I would assume if you're going to sell lots, you're going to have some kind of have to have a developer, I would think, for your access to roads, water, that type of thing. Is there any mention, or will that be divulged to the public in the future when a developer is chosen? The reason for my question is watching what happens with developers when they develop land. An example of my concern is, in the resolutions number 7, it's saying that Grand Mesa Apartments project is requesting HUD financing. Now, there is a new rule in federal financing that is working toward regionalization, which gets away from local control in government. That concerns me. So my question is will there be publications in the future concerning a next step that a developer would go through to inform the public, such as is happening here on your resolutions, number 7? Will that occur if the Hembrys take on a developer and then ask for federal financing?
Please.
Maybe I can help. This is a property owner
I realize that.
chosen to subdivide his piece of property, and he still remains the owner of the property. It's his choice whether he wants to get a developer in there. If he chooses to sell those pieces of land by himself, that's fine.
He can do that?
But it's his property. Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, absolutely fabulous. I'm all for that.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, well, it does. I'm just concerned that we're not moving forward to federalizing a lot of what's happening with our river, because private property rights, I feel, are extremely important, and we should protect them. And our government is such that it is so amazing that there are so many checks for the private property owner to get involved. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is just make sure that the county land remains in, surrounding county land is remaining county land.
I believe that all we're really doing here is giving that property owner some more options of what to do with his land.
Beautiful.
And it's private ownership, and I believe there's no incentive for it not to be private ownership in future, regardless of what he decides to do with this rezoned land.
Right. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time.
Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Actually, Ms. Bergeron, if you were so inclined, you could go buy one of these lots from this gentleman, and as long as you could then pass city building code inspections, you personally could even go build a house, build a building, wire, and everything else, as long as it's for your use, and you can pass all of the city building code inspections. So that's, yeah, basically, it's for the private individual to go use as his property.
Okay, I love that answer. I'm happy with that. Thank you.
You betcha.
Thank you. Are there anyone else? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the Hembry Edition number 2? Please approach the lectern. Anyone else to speak in opposition? Going once. All right. There being no others to speak for or against the Hembry Edition number 2, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance authorizing the vacation and replat of Lot 1, Hembry Addition, creating Hembry Addition Number 2, and rezoning same from AG Urban Agriculture to R2 one-unit residential, located at 2671 South Robertson Road.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Powell. Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Pat had a question on the lot, because we didn't have the map up there with the drawing on it. It's 4,800 square feet. So it's, it looks, in that picture, it looks pretty small, but it's an 800 square foot lot. So.
Yeah, we're all pretty familiar with what that land is right there.
Yeah.
I would think that we would want to have a little bigger lot so that we could be a little more assured that if you're going to develop it, we can get something on there, increase your tax revenue, so you have a blank piece of property somewhere.
Yeah.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Mayor, actually, by rezoning it from ag to R2, we are going to wind up getting more tax revenue out of it, because the valuation, hopefully, Mr. Giles, the evaluation will go up on it so that we would get more tax revenue. But by the same token, it is this gentleman's land, and in trying to allow him to do with his land, it meets all other requirements, so pretty well got to let it go.
That's that one against its own change, is that the way it was actually divided up. And I think it should have been like two different questions in your, two different votes, one for the zone change, one for the plat.
I'm writing that down. Any more discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. Record the vote. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the transfer of ownership of restaurant liquor license number 4, Botticelli Ristorante Italiano. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Your Honor, I have 4 exhibits. Exhibit number 1 being correspondence from Tracy Belser, 2016. Exhibit number 2, that being the affidavit of publication as published in the Casper Star Tribune dated January 12, 2016. Exhibit number 3, that being the affidavit of website publication as published on the City of Casper website dated December 29, 2015. And exhibit number 4, that being the actual liquor license application, which was filed with the city on December 21st, 2015.
Thank you. City Manager report.
Your Honor, the current owners of the liquor license located at 129 West 2nd Street, or Botticelli's, has consented to a application by proposed new owners to transfer that license to those new owners. This is a restaurant license, and it can be transferred The ownership can be transferred, the location cannot be transferred on a restaurant license. The appropriate application was filed, reviewed by all departments in the state, and the required publishing of notice has been done, so it is at your table to consider the transfer.
And I'm writing that down too. You can transfer the ownership, but not the location for a restaurant liquor license.
That's correct.
Thank you. This time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the transfer of restaurant liquor license number 4, please approach the lectern. Those to speak in favor of the transfer of liquor license number 4. Okay. This time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the transfer of liquor license number 4, restaurant liquor license number 4, to please approach the lectern. Anyone to speak in opposition? Okay. There being no one to speak for or against the transfer of restaurant liquor license number 4, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the transfer of ownership of restaurant liquor license number 4, Botticelli Ristorante Italiano.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Powell, seconded by Councilman Miller. Discussion. Amendments. Please cast your vote. I now declare a public hearing open for the consideration of the transfer of corporate ownership of retail liquor license number 6, Frosty's Lounge. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
I do, Your Honor. I have 4 exhibits for this item. Exhibit number 1, that being correspondence from Tracy Belser to V.H. McDonald, dated January 19th, 2016. Exhibit number 2, that being the affidavit of publication as published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated January 12th, 2016. Exhibit number 3, that being the affidavit of website publication as published on the City of Casper website, that document being dated January 8th, 2016. And exhibit number 4, that being the liquor license application in this matter, which was filed with the city on December 21st, 2015.
Thank you. City Manager's report.
Your Honor, Casper Municipal Code requires that whenever a transfer of more than 10% of a corporation ownership is being contemplated, that requires an application process to the City Council, much like the application for transfer of ownership or location of that license. This is the case in this, and that the corporate ownership is being proposed to be transferred and sold, distinctly different than the liquor license being transferred. I believe the liquor license will be still held by the same corporation, but the corporation will result in different ownership if it's approved tonight. The application process is the same, and the notices and the publications and the reviews occurred like others. This item's a little bit different in that this item has some conditions. This license has conditions and restrictions attached to it, which will stay with the license regardless of the corporate ownership.
Okay, so this is a full retail liquor license.
Yes.
And the reason that we're transferring it isn't because it's going anywhere, it's just a change in the corporate structure. So we have to go through this process to approve.
Yes, correct.
Okay. At this time, I would like to ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the transfer of liquor license number 6 to please approach the lectern.
Nancy Goddard, 383rd Avenue, Mills, Wyoming. Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd like to introduce you to who is taking over Frosty's, which is family. This is my daughter, Stacy Quick. Sorry about that. And this is my granddaughter, Morgan Morissette. And so I'm just retiring, so yay. They're taking over, sorry.
Okay.
If you approve.
Certainly. Any questions for Nancy Goddard?
Been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, yeah. You've been on a roller coaster, no
I
doubt.
have. It's time to get off this ride. One
Okay.
down, one to go.
Still going to make good burgers?
You bet.
You beat me to the punch, Mr. Vice
You
Mayor.
betcha. In fact, the menu the new menu, and it hasn't really changed.
Very good.
Yep,
Thank you.
still good prices.
Okay. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of transfer of liquor license number 6? Please approach the lectern. Mr. Sweeney.
Good evening, Pat Sweeney, 951 North Kimball. I would like to also speak in favor of this transfer of ownership. The smoking ban took a lot out of a lot of us, and this and the sandbar, I believe, are a result of part of that, and it's kind of taken the fun out of the overreach, the overregulation, and obviously the voters spoke. In that, I also would like to thank Nancy for all of her hard work on behalf of the community on safe rides, out selling raffle tickets, and getting items donated for our Thankful Thursday several years ago, which we're still reaping the benefits off of those dollars, and her support of those programs on behalf of the city and the community. I think it's personally a sad day, and that we lose an operator of that character. She's worked hard to work with the police department on fighting different crimes, and after she took control of the sandbar and then Frosty's. But I would ask that you highly consider this change of ownership and corporate structure, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Any questions or comments to direct to Mr. Sweeney? Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of the transfer of liquor license number 6? Please approach the lectern. Okay. At this time, I would like to ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the transfer of retail liquor license number 6 to please approach the lectern. To those to speak in opposition. Okay. Now, being no one else to speak in favor or against the transfer of retail liquor license number 6, I now declare the public hearing closed. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the transfer of retail liquor license number 6, Frosty's Lounge.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Vice Mayor Cathy and seconded by Councilman Powell. Discussion.
Your Honor, I would also like to recognize Ms. Goddard's efforts. I think it's been a long time since the sandbar had the problems that predated her management of that operation. But the problems back in that period of time, which actually predates my time on council, were significant, and it was a problem area that our police visited. Oh, sorry. It was a problem area that our police visited frequently, which was why the stipulations were put on the license in the first place. But as soon as Ms. Goddard took over the facility, the atmosphere changed dramatically, and so did the calls from our police department, and she is to be commended for that.
Any more comments? Well, I do have a comment because I stood next to Nancy Goddard at the county clerk's office when the referendum vote for the smoking ban was coming in. And it was trending relatively early in the evening, and we could see what was happening. And in my opinion, what was happening was, it was judgmentalism. I think that the voters were just a little irked that there are people out there risking health and lives of their own by high-risk behavior like smoking and drinking, and I think it just irked them. And I think that the true measure of whether or not we should impose rules and laws and ordinances is if they're necessary. And we'd worked out a compromise, and it wasn't necessary. And I think that it was just a prevailing sense of righteousness. How dare these people party when we're all being so health conscious? And I think that's what prevailed in the mind of voters that evening. And I think it's speaking to a bigger problem of just expecting government to take care of our personal responsibilities. Addiction is a personal struggle. Government shouldn't be involved. So I was disappointed in that vote as well, but the voters have spoken. And so I'm really sorry that one of our vanguards of personal freedoms is passing the baton, and hopefully Stacy Quick and the other interested parties will step up and continue. Anyway, do we have any amendments? Please cast your votes. The council will now consider consent resolutions. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 8A1, a resolution approving a lease agreement between the City of Casper and the Downtown Development Authority on the Ash Street Plaza Professional Office Building. Item 8A2, a resolution authorizing the release of local assessment district liens filed against properties for which the assessed balance has been paid in full. Item 8A3, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Serpentix Conveyor Corporation for the purchase of components for the rebuild of the Serpentix dewatered solids belt conveyor at the wastewater treatment plant. Item 8A4, a resolution authorizing Amendment Number 1 to the contract for professional services with West Plains Engineering for the Holgadon Ski Patrol and Maintenance Shop Project. Item 8A5, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Grizzly Excavating and Construction Incorporated for Phase 2 of the 15th and Elm Street Improvements Project. Item 8A6, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Chem Hill Engineers Incorporated for the Sam H. Hobbs Wastewater Treatment Plant Preliminary Facilities Plan. Item 8A7, a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a letter of support to the Wyoming Community Development Authority for the proposed 62-unit Grand Mesa apartment project to be located at 2941 and 2943 Central Drive, Casper, Wyoming.
The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councilman Powell, seconded by Councilman Schlager. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
The council will now consider minute action items. These are routine business items that do not require a resolution. Please read the consent minute action title.
Authorize the purchase of one Toro Groundmaster 5910 from Midland Implement Company, Billings, Montana, to be used in the Parks Division of the Public Services Department before trade-in allowance.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute item action agenda item just read.
So moved.
Seconded. Moved by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilman Miller. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting
Anyone from the audience who wishes to speak to the council to come forward, we ask you to please state your name and address.
Good evening, Your Honor. Pat Sweeney, 951 North Kimball. Thank you for Councilman Powell and Mayor Sandoval for your kind words on Nancy. My question is on the item 8A, consent 1. Where's the $350,000 coming from for DDA to pay this lease of over a 3-year period, $350,000, approximately $116,000 per year? Their tax collection money is only between $120,000 and I believe $160,000 from the property assessment. So I'm a little confused where DDA is getting the money to pay the city these funds when they don't have income to cover that.
Who wants to take a crack at that?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly when, I think it's called the Plan of Development that the DDA presented to council last year was presented, but there's basically pots of money, the money that the council set aside for development of the plaza and the private donations, and so this lease agreement is the DDA assuming control of the property so that we can relocate the state office employees in the facility. So that's where they're getting their money, and it was part of the plan all along for this to happen, which was the agreement with the state as far as giving us the opportunity to purchase the building at Ash and Yellowstone.
So basically, it was probably part of the $3 million that the city put into the plaza project.
It depends on, it's a total funding package, so you can say it came out of there, you can say it came out of the private donations. I don't think there was any specificity as far as where the money came from.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hawley, was that accurate? Thank you.
For the record, we got a nod from Kevin Hawley of the DDA.
Woody Giles, 290 East Magnolia in Paradise Valley area. I'd just like to apologize to the council. Last meeting, I mentioned the Granite Peak building and some numbers, and the numbers that Robin had were actually correct. And the numbers I got from the government website were wrong, and I checked them twice, probably a month apart, and anyway, I was wrong. So that caused me concern, so I checked all the other numbers that I've been giving the council, and those are still correct, and some of them are equally egregious. But anyway, I'm sorry for giving you a wrong number last time. And one little comment about that Robertson Road thing, I was kind of baffled by it being urban ag, because as far back as I can remember, it's been covered in asphalt.
It's true.
And no crops and no livestock, and you know, but, so somebody got a free ride there, so that's all I had.
Anyone else to address council?
Paul Pad, 27 Cherokee Lane. Mr. Mayor, I guess I'm kind of a little concerned about the question that Councilman Powell just answered for Mr. Sweeney. Now, might I understand, and I guess maybe I had a misunderstanding as to where the funding was coming for this, for the lease payment on this building. So I might understand that basically the city is putting money into the fund, and then out of that fund, the city's getting some of their own money back. Is that basically what you just said? I mean, because, you know, when this whole thing came up to purchase that building, it was that we were going to get $350,000 back. Now, if we're getting our own money back, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, does it? I thought the state was going to be paying that money to us.
Okay. Someone may need to correct me on this, but here's how I think these complicated real estate transfers work. If you're going to take down a state building and then move state employees into a government building, a city government building, it's government to government, so that you don't actually move the money around so much as account for the money, and ultimately when you do the accounting, that money is accounted for. That's
when it came up to purchase that building, Mr. Patterson sat in that chair right there and said, we're getting $350,000 of this, so it's really not costing us as much as we're putting out. So if we're getting back our own money, then we're not getting back. I mean, so, I mean, you're putting money and setting it aside for the Plaza project here, and then you're going to get, and then they're going to take that money and pay you back? That's like us borrowing from China and then giving them foreign aid. I mean, that's just...
okay.
Mr. Pad, if we give $3 million to the Plaza and they spend $300,000 paying us back, we end up giving 2.7 plus that 3. So it's $3 million total. That figure doesn't change.
What I'm saying is we're not getting money back for the rent on that, for the lease on that building like the original claim was. I mean, we're getting our own money back. That's, you know, that's like, I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. Why are we not getting, I thought we were supposed to be getting that money from the rent, that DDA was going to get the rent from the state and then pay the city back, so that we were actually seeing an income off of this, not taking money, you know, I mean, we might as well just give them $2.7 million instead of $3 million, and then just not even worried about collecting rent. That's basically what we're doing. Is that right? Is that the way that's the way I'm understanding it. Now, maybe I'm missing
correctly,
something.
but it makes perfect sense to me.
What's that?
You're describing it correctly, but it makes perfect sense to me.
Makes perfect sense for us to get our own money back. That's,
DDA needs $7.5 million for the plaza. They have been taking donations, okay? Some of that money came from the city. Maybe you've given them a donation. I don't know. But basically, when they get to that $7.5 million, out of that pot, they are paying the city the rent. Now, was that your donation that was used? Was that the city's money that was used? Was that somebody else's money that was used? I can't tell you which dime of that money is coming back to the city, but it is out of that $7.5 million pot of money. So if you want to say we're getting our own money back, you can say that. I can say I'm getting $300,000 of Joe Blow citizens donated money back. So.
well, let me ask you this then. Who's collecting the rent from the state on that? The rent is, the state is going to be.
State's rent-free as far as I know.
I don't know. That's between
State's rent-free?
That's between the state and the DDA. So you need to be talking to the DDA about how they're collecting that rent.
Wow. Okay. You guys are just basically blowing another few $100,000 that it's just ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. I know what you're saying, but you're just sitting here, shuffling numbers on paper and basically saying, we're just getting our own money back. And look how good we're doing. We're getting $350,000 on a lease. Of course, we could have just given them $350,000 less, just scratch the numbers for zero, and then we were getting nothing back. It's the same. It's the same thing. It still comes down to the same bottom line. If you give them $350,000 less, they still have the same amount of money in their pot. We've still paid for the building, and we're still getting nothing back off of the, what was it, 1.4? I can't remember what we paid for it. I don't remember what we paid for it. But, so when we have somebody sitting here and telling us that, well, this is a good deal because we're getting $350,000 back, we're not. So that's all the point I'm making. So that's it. So,
Okay. I understand Mr. Pad's frustration, and I want to remind everybody that in these real estate transactions, there's a lot of moving pieces. So, maybe things weren't arranged at a certain point to where we're simply allowing to take pay $270,000 instead of $3 million. It's moving chess pieces. And so it sounds like we're just shifting money around, but I'm reasonably confident that there is a reason for these complex financial instruments to be moving the way they move. I know that's not very satisfying. Anyone else care to address council? Come on, there's stickier wickets out there, aren't there? Surely. Okay. This time I ask council members to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. Councilman Schlager, nothing?
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
Councilman Miller?
No report, Your Honor. Thank you.
Councilman Hopkins?
Yeah, a few things. Had an OID meeting earlier in the week, and we had some updates to the folks that are working very hard to make the OID better. It's a group of very dedicated business people down there, and they're a pretty enthusiastic group, so I was glad to hear the updates. We are still working on the update of the boomer issue, and we had a meeting, or the boomer study, if you will. We had a meeting last week, and we talked about housing. Housing for, there's two groups that probably we need to work on getting some housing for: market rate housing downtown, and also young professional housing downtown, which again would be at market rate. And we heard last week that in the boomer study, specifically looking at housing, there is essentially zero market rate housing for boomers. When somebody wants to downsize, it just doesn't exist in our market. So that's a problem for us. Also last week attended an Amoco Reuse Joint Powers Board meeting, and we did talk about selling of one lot up there. We sold it to a company called Newsco for $217,000. We have interest from our real estate side of the organization on a couple other lots up there. So that's some positive things. And we also have some interest in some lots down in the Platte River Business Park, down along the riverside. So things are looking okay there. We don't have any checks in the banks for those, but there are people that are still interested in properties there along that river. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Powell.
Thank you, Your Honor. I encourage everyone to check out our new remodeled recreation center. It's cool, and the proposal will be before council in relatively near future to consider changing the annual rate to use the rec center from $80 to $90, which is a little more than I pay for 1 month at my private facility where I work out. So it's an incredible deal for the citizens of Casper to have that facility available, and it's what's been done over there with the assistance of the State Land Investment Board grant it takes a 40-year-old, roughly 40-year-old facility and makes it a modern facility, so it's pretty cool. And we also heard from several user groups of our fields, the soccer group and the midget football folks, as well as the Rec Foundation. And every time the Leisure Board meets, I'm once again struck with the just how many impressive people there are in this community who, without any fanfare, without any recognition, are just working behind the scenes to provide things for our kids, and just because they have a passion for it. And we are truly blessed for all of these folks that step up to run these programs.
Councilman Pacheco.
Not too much. I always like to see young people come to our council meetings. I think, obviously, I hope you guys didn't get bored to death listening to us, because it can be kind of boring meetings. But I actually had heard on the radio that what we need to be able to do with our polarizing political environment nationally is work with our youth and to teach them the art of working together, and that people can come together and do these things. And I think that that's an important aspect that we need to pass on to our younger generation. So thank you for coming, guys. I don't know why you're here, but thank you for being here, and we need young people to come to this and see how a political process works, and how adults can actually work together and make a difference in the community, because it is possible to be able to do that. Even you can disagree and get along.
Councilman Johnson.
I just wanted to say that Mr. Pat had a very legitimate concern, and now that wasn't the whole reason. That was part of the reason I voted against the purchase of that building. So don't feel discounted. I know where you're coming from. That's it.
Vice Mayor Cathy.
Today there was a Joint Powers Water Board meeting. There have been 2 sites looked at for a new water tank going out on the west side of town. The FAA has approved both of those sites, we found out and learned today. We are going to be investigating an alternate site to see how that comes out. The county planning and zoning tabled our conditional use permit until it's come back off the table. So we are proceeding along those lines. We also signed the contract for the review of facilities, operating procedures, basically a whole evaluation of the water treatment plant. And so that will be commencing, first meeting is the 2nd of February. So that is heading on there. For the people that use Kingsbury and 21st Street, there is a new 4-way stop sign there. So slow down and be aware. And still, particularly the people on 21st, probably make sure you do look, because that is something new for the people on Kingsbury, that there still may be some lack of appropriate braking on the part of those individuals. But be careful, watch out. We did get a thank you today from one of the citizens in that area that it has seemed to slow the traffic down, and they do seem to be appreciative of that. So I wanted to pass that on, make sure our city employees know that as well, that we did get an attaboy today. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, I also attended the Regional Water Board meeting, and it's kind of interesting. The water tower is about a year behind schedule. We danced with the FAA for a while about the radar interference and the reflective paint. No. So we moved it to Site 4 and 5, and there was some opposition to Site 5 because of 160-foot water tower sticking up in the beautiful Wyoming view. I kind of understand that. And we're going to explore Site 4, leave Site 5 tabled for that water tower, which will improve fire protection and water pressure in the area. It's not like we don't need it. On Monday, yesterday, I read a proclamation for the Martin Luther King Day celebration, a proclamation that I wrote the preface to, and I paid special attention to that because Dr. King basically changed the heart of a nation with his intellectual clarity, with his eloquence. So there was some pressure associated with writing the introduction to that proclamation, and I think I did a fairly good job. Yesterday, also, Martin Luther King Day, we had extensive interviews to fill our vacant seat on council, and after 9 applicants, trimmed down to 8 because FCC rules, and we were trying to chase down these rules, and we finally learned that it's the FCC regulations that Brian Scott has to work under. Basically tell him that he cannot be on the air / do his job for the entire campaign season. And because Councilman Mundell did not spend 2 years at her seat, the person that we appoint is going to have to run in 2016 and again in 2018 to keep the stagger of our election cycles so that we're not potentially replacing 6 council members in any one election. Now, if you're good at math and figuring this stuff out, you realize that this is kind of what we're doing in 2016, but we're going to fix it in 2018. So, the long and the short is, we made our selection after those interviews, and from the 8, we chose Wayne Hiley to be our new council member for Ward 1, And yes, he knows he'll have to run in 2016 and again in 2018, but we chose Wayne Hiley, and we will be swearing him in on February 2nd, which is Groundhog Day, formerly known as Candlemas, if you guys are into old calendars. But anyway, Wayne Hiley is the one we chose, and we look forward to a complete council. And that's it. So, the next meetings of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, January 26th, 2016, in the council's meeting room, and a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, February 2nd, where we'll swear in Wayne Hiley, and that will be in the council chambers. The Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Vice Mayor Cathy. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, the motion passes.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Bob. We're probably gonna have to make that a... What's that? Yeah, if you look over here, you'll see I can't use that.
You got one in there?
Well, I got another one blocked by that box.
Oh, yeah.